not sure if you're on or not, but
thanks a lot. Yeah.
no, there you are.
Much.
Yeah, it's been forever.
Yeah, it has. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Yeah. What are you working on these days?
Back. Actually, I'm working on a project that's, or actually it's a company that's being founded around collective intelligence. So it's a little bit more in the area of crowdsourcing thoughts, more than maybe the actual physical work. But that's what I'm working with at the moment. How can we harness knowledge within companies in new ways? So I find that very interesting.
That's awesome. Well, very cool.
And also I'm new.
Yeah, hi.
If I can introduce myself to you,
for
it's
sure.
very, very nice to meet you. My name is Agnieszka, but you can call me Agnes. I'm from Poland. I work in Talent Alpha. I'm VP of External Relations here, and the company is on forefront of gig economy, I would say. But we are connecting companies rather than not freelancers. So we allow exchange. We built a platform that is allowing exchanging tech talent between companies. But we also invite agencies, all kind of platforms or other providers that would like to cooperate with us. So we treat ourselves like a connector. And we also use AI, machine learning and talent science to grab people's skills, to measure their what we call talent genome. So technical skills and psychometrics. I don't know any other tool that would go so deep into details of skills, but we can of course argue on that.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being here. Exciting to have you for sure. Anybody else that's new?
Be here. Sorry?
Oh, I was just asking, is anybody else that's new that wanted to kind of announce themselves? Awesome. Well, thanks again. Hey, listen, I wanted to catch up everybody on the, so we just went through yesterday I guess the third meeting of the OTPCP, the training program. And it's been unbelievable, I think, for me personally. I think one of the things is like, it's not really a training and certification program. It's more our opportunity to learn from the experts, and including, Diane Finkhausen and Steve and Balaji and John Healy and Brian Pena and Dale Pierce and a bunch of other folks. So I don't know, Steve or Balaji or John, those are the three guys I see on the call from the training. Any thoughts from your guys' perspective on what's happening and what we're learning?
Man, I think there's huge progress. There's some really nice products coming around. Balaji had just a beautiful deck that was really insightful and captured a lot of good stuff. And he won't brag on it, but I will, because it was really great. And Barry's stuff as well. And this is hard stuff. It was really clear that there is a lot to this as we peel the onion. So those are my inputs. Ashley was on as well.
Oh, Ashley, yeah, for sure. Sorry, I didn't see you there.
Yeah, no worries. So much my head hurt after that, after the session yesterday. Balaji had some great words of wisdom. I think the biggest thing that I took away was when we look at sort of who owns this within the organization. That's been a common theme that's come up. And, Diane had some great words to say about whether or not there's a center of excellence. The kind of goal of it all is to have a centralized entity within the organization that maybe eventually dissolves itself as it becomes just, this is how work gets done. And Balaji had a similar sentiment, sort of Deloitte Pixel going in and kind of being the original consultants of adopting open talent for organizations. Is it eventually the case that we put ourselves out of business with it, right? As it just becomes, this isn't about open talent. This is about just, this is how we get work done within the organization. That was one of the biggest takeaways I got from yesterday.
That's awesome. That's really awesome.
I'd just chime in. Ashley. I think to Steve's point of, this being tough, what you're seeing as well is the different perspectives that so many of us have had. as we come into something, and trying to kind of bring ourselves together into some common language, unique opportunity to hear some things from a customer's perspective, the different perspectives that even exist within that client environment, and the value of actually synthesizing this into a more consistent process that we can all bring to market, I think is something that will really, really support the adoption that I think we're all hunting for, and that got us kind of chasing this journey from the beginning.
That's awesome, John. Hey, Balaji, are you still on? Did he drop off?
I am, but I'm on
yeah,
mic, so I'm not sure how loud the wind noise is in the back end. But it was a fun session to also get reactions from what I've been doing for the last couple of years from everybody else that I truly respect and value.
Yeah, that's really awesome. I mean, I it's been really great for me because listening to the conversation and being involved in the conversation and trying to figure out how do I, synthesize this stuff into this book that's, that Jen and I are writing. I kind of have got to the point where, I was writing the book and it was going really well. And then, Mark and his team, Mark Hanot and his team did such a great job on the framework that we launched, worked on that a bunch. It was really great, but it helped me kind of rethink what I've been writing. And then certainly these sessions with all these great folks have been, refining it even more. So it's really helped me think, like, how do we do this so that it's ordinary and boring, as I always love to kind of quote Kareem Lakhani from way back when, that this is going to be tipped when it's super ordinary and boring, and it's just the way that the things work. And I think we're getting there for sure. But John, I totally agree with you, is creating some framework that we all can agree on that allows for us for a light enough framework so it can be adopted to different things, right? So it's not so prescriptive that everybody goes off script, but a light enough adoption process that kind of captures the general feeling, but enough space that everybody can kind of customize it. Brian Saltz-Holcomb has been on this journey with me for a while, trying to synthesize stuff. Brian, any thoughts from you? I mean, you're always, you can see the forest for the trees, where I'm always so down in the trees, I can't see anything these days.
Yeah, I think just we're all sort of speaking and had a good conversation with Barry Matthews this morning about the state of the industry. And I think there's a real opportunity and a challenge to take the wisdom of the early consultants who've really blazed a path at helping organizations to adopt methods and see how far we can go to make that something tangible and really accessible to a broader group. And so I'm really excited about the work that is circling around all of this to say, we've got great wisdom, we got people doing the work every day, and how do we distill that and continue to make it more and more accessible and tangible. So
yeah, one of the things that I've been really intrigued with lately, and Balaji, you inspired me, was this idea that being an innovation guy, I've always thought of, like the great work you're doing, Steve, and the great stuff I had a chance to do at Havas. And what I'm finding is that it is one of the opportunities to really talk about open talent in the context of outsourcing, right? Because it really, when you think about, like, Steve, Jeff's stuff early on at NASA, it was kind of, I needed to outsource these problems because I didn't have a budget. And I read this really fascinating article a couple of weeks ago doing some research, and it was a legal article about what they were calling digital outsourcing. So they were saying, here are the terms and conditions of outsourcing contracts that need to change when you don't use humans, but you use AI and RPA and all those things. And really interesting to think about, like, even using AI as a form of outsourcing, right? So it was just a kind of a mind-blowing thing. And I'd love to get kind of reaction and talk through some of that from, like, maybe David Swift or Stephen Wellbeloved, or how does that fit into the context of the procurement and outsourcing world, instead of writ large, right? Because I think we need a place that is ordinary and boring as an entry place for most companies. David, any thoughts? You have so much experience with that.
Yeah, actually, it's. I think it's the first time I've heard of outsourcing. I mean, you're typically outsourcing to companies that have humans, but then they'll apply technology, and more so. And all the big Indian outsourcers have been doing that for years. But that they would have a different contract because you're using exclusively IT technology. That's the first time I've heard of that, John. So I'm glad I came on the call. I've learned something.
Good. Any thoughts as looking at, you know, I mean,
I mean, John, I think the way I think about it is, you know, if you think about the beginning of all the Indian outsources, the term was BPO, which is business process outsourcing.
Right.
People were just a tool to get that process off somebody else's ownership to somebody else to own it. Now, if you see what all of the Indian outsourcers have done an incredibly phenomenal job is automation of all those practices. Their if you track their growth to growth of their employees, in the past it was pretty much one-to-one. Their employee growth was completely in sync with their revenue growth. Now their total number of employees are decreasing, and their revenue is increasing because they are increasingly pushing the activities that people did to automation and bots and AI. And what that is doing in some way is they are now saying, you pay us differently. In the past, you used to pay us for a number of people working on the project. Right. Now you pay us for the outcomes that we want to own for you. And it shouldn't matter to you what we are doing. And also the clients are becoming smarter. They are also saying that you need to promise me a reduced fee every year because we're expecting you to do automation. In the past, the fee would always go up every year because there's a rate per hour, you know, inflation and all of that. Now, most clients are saying your revenue, our cost to you will go down because we are expecting you to become more efficient using tools. So there's a interplay happening there.
And I could see that, you know, the cost going down with using more open talent too, right? I had a great conversation with Paul Livko at Wellmark, and his point was, yeah, it's great. I have 3 offices in Des Moines for Wellmark, and then I have 3 offices with my outsource client or my outsourcing resources in India. But it really, you know, I still have a huge talent gap because 70% of Paul's team is outsourced, and he said the number one crisis is this kind of impending digital talent crisis. Barry Matthews sent me this chart that, you know, tracks that right now there are 41 million open, you know, digital jobs that can't be filled. And by 2025, it's gonna be 150 million jobs. So, and there's no way to use any of the current ways to place the talent to find that except possibly open talent to break the mindset, right? Instead of saying there's 150 million full-time jobs versus this could be, you know, atomized to say these are a lot more tasks that can be used along a much larger spectrum of talent. So I'm really intrigued by that.
So John, it's Stevie. I'm doing some work with Barry for my company. I think you probably may know. So I work for a large service provider, and the challenges are, you know, of looking at how we can fill that war for talent with open talent platforms. Is something that I've obviously in the last 10 months being part of this forum is something I'm championing, and I think making some really good progress. But
that's great.
It's interesting how the groups, you know, legal, security, compliance, privacy are kind of on board. The areas that we're finding some resistance from are guys who, because I work in commercial, I look after a group of businesses in capital markets. It's the guys who their day job is actually this talent, looking after the traditional processes, and that which has worked well for them. But you know, but it's not going to be there in the future. We just can't find people. And the analogy that I think I spoke to Roland Roseveare about is that, you know, you've been fishing in one pond for so many years. You can add more recruiters, more fishermen to fish in the same pond, but the fishes have actually swum somewhere else.
Right.
They're elsewhere, and we need to find a way in which we can bring them into the organisation. So, you know, it's an interesting journey, but well, hopefully we'll get there at some point.
Yeah, tell me, how do your clients for Cognizant? Are you starting to talk about that with your clients, and how do they feel about it?
Yeah, I think so. You know, we've got the normal sort of things around liability and, you know, what happens with that, because we normally go through MSPs or direct and all those sorts of good stuff. But clients, one of the initiative is to ring fence a control pilot with clients that are, you know, some have the same problems, whether they have their own centers in India or whether they might be in the world. So they have the same problems we have as a service provider. But some of them, I think, see it as a really good innovative way. I mean, we're not pioneering. I mean, you know, Balaji and Deloitte have been doing this, and others have been doing this for many years, right? But in the traditional, you know, engine room of talent we have in India, some of the clients we're speaking to are going, well, that's a really good idea. We really support that. Let's give it a go. Let's innovate and let's try it. Yeah, so I think some are, they're all, when I talk to some other clients about it, just give them an idea of what I'm doing, and they're really, whereas 5 years ago they've probably gone, well, we came to you because you've got all the talent, right? Why are you talking to me about going to someone else? And you hear that from Steve at NASA, right? So what the great story at NASA. So we're going through that same journey, and there's loads of other clients like us who are doing the same thing, either a bit ahead, a bit behind, or haven't even thought about it. So I think some of the clients, to answer your question, I think are keen to embrace it and understand what that means, because if it helps their programs continue, then great, right? So
yeah, for sure. And I think you guys play such a unique role in this because you've already have the relationship with clients, and they trust you, with handling their IP and handling the compliance issues and all those kinds of things, security. So, being able to build open talent solutions inside folks like Cognizant is a really important part of that adoption process, I believe. So really cool to see that you're out there doing it, and there's some momentum. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for sharing. Yeah.
John, it's Neil Fox.
Hey, Neil, how are you? Yeah, totally. Good, I didn't see you on there. Thanks a lot for jumping in.
I'm on the next screen or something.
Yeah.
Good to see you and everyone else. If we haven't met, I'm Neil Fox, Chief Technology Officer at Hexaware. Similar to Stephen's role at Cognizant, but just to add to what Stephen and Balaji are talking about, I'm leading an effort inside of Hexaware to think about how do you productize a service, right? So in the past, we've seen products being servitized, right? Like video consumption and all sorts of everything is being delivered as a service, where we're thinking about the reverse, right? How do you deliver a service as a product? That's what Balaji was saying, and Steve kind of added to that was, largely what companies want are outcomes and not people, right? It's not the people they're looking for. And to take what Stephen said one step further, it's not just about using gig workers, but really about thinking about what tasks in a particular outcome can be automated, right? Which could be used for digital workers, and where do you need human workers, right? If you think about an analogy of a car factory today, right, looks very different than it did 30 years ago, right? Where 30 years ago it was all manual. Today, it's mostly automated with a few people that are there to do some of the tasks. And I think IT services are moving that direction, right? It's really about how do you orchestrate the work between digital workers and human workers. And that's where I'm trying to spend a lot of my time. And then when you get to the human workers, right, which gig folks are aligned to those human tasks. So what we're doing right now is certifying gig workers using Upwork and our partnership with them to certify them on specific tasks to do part of a program, and then using the innate orchestration platform, if you haven't seen it, pretty cool, that helps move work between digital workers and human workers. Pretty fascinating stuff.
That's awesome. What a great ad. Thank you so much. Anybody else have any thoughts on this conversation? Would love to get some participation.
Hey John.
Hey Matt, how are you? Yeah, great. Good to see you.
It strikes me as we talk about this that one of the things that I see as a gap, and maybe it's been discussed before, but is not only getting the companies to embrace that they can go to these types of gig workers and feel confident, but also I think there's a whole group of workers who don't realize they can feel confident being a gig worker. And the psychology of going into this world is probably a huge chunk of people that need to feel that it's okay to do that. The psychological safety of kind of being on your own and stuff. I think we have the pandemic has certainly pushed people forward. You hear all of these folks are quitting their job and reassessing their life. There's probably a good section of people that need to feel the psychological safety they can jump in as well, and that's a group to address. And this group on one end is creating the platforms and the ability to do it for the companies and giving them the psychological safety. I feel like we need to maybe think about the other side of it too, and have people jump in.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. The advocacy group's been doing a really, really good job of thinking through that. And I don't know if David Bosenhagen is on the call today, but really good progress there. I was really, thankful for joining their call last week. Is David on? I don't think he is. But anybody on that committee that wanted to, or the work stream that wanted to address that?
Well, we're here. Link is here. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Stephen.
No, I was just I thought Maffei was on, you're on, and like you said, Chris, you're on, Link, you're on.
Yeah, we're working on it. I mean, I feel like the perspective of the worker is critical to everything we do from the platform perspective, and we must be aware of that. There are potential dangers, for example, and again, like the missions transform work for 1 billion people. That's really good for some people, and it's going to be really bad for others, and we just need to be aware of that.
That's a great point, for sure.
And if I can add
Link.
to that too, and you know, you know, about this work and anything related to diversity, equity, and inclusion, you know, history past is the thing that makes progress stop sometimes. It's the squeaky wheel in the motor, as we discussed the other day. And really, and I just sent an email about this, I want to make it fun, make it attractive. How can we make these kind of concepts about what's missing, make it to the heart of everything that we're doing in platform building, in the future of work? And how do we reach those people inclusively in a way that it's a win-win for both sides? And so I just wanted to add that to it.
Go for it, Steve.
I was just saying, there's such an opportunity here. You hear it, right? There's a huge demand, and then there's this huge set of folks that are underutilized, and it's just a matter of figuring out how to move them up, because it's not all no skill people. They have skills, they have talents, and I love, Kathy, what you're doing. I was so happy to drop in on the last part of your conversation as you were doing the one-on-one. I think this whole idea of tapping into neurodiverse, tapping into folks that just their situation doesn't allow them to utilize. There's a lot of capacity there, that kind of mental capacity, that if we can just figure out how to tap into it, is going to meet that demand you talk about, that 100 million demand that's coming there, John. So I love it.
Well, and they balance out.
Oh,
go ahead, please.
Go ahead, Kathy.
Oh, I was going to say they balance out the need of some, you know, the new generation of, I need to be promoted every 18 months, or I need to, you know, to be moving and shaking and changing, because their need for stability is the strongest motivator, having probably grown up in a lot of change. So, you know, we've done studies where you hire 300 fresh college grads into the same role that you hire 300 from a workforce development. And the average length of stay is 18 months for the college grad, 47 months for the person who found alternate paths to get IT certification. Those two groups together give companies more stability and long-term knowledge. And someone's there to learn who knows how to turn off the lights, because that is the stability is the one thing in their life they haven't had that they're searching for. Same thing with people on the spectrum. They hate change. You know, oh, let's go interview again. No, that's the worst part for them. So there are skills like resiliency and perseverance and stability and willingness to sacrifice ego and other things for stability that we're not leveraging right now. Corporations more secure too and more stable.
Well, and I would say, as we redefine what is a work environment stable, like it's not all going to be about full-time jobs. It's people finding stability within the gig and freelance economy. I think that's going to be the real kind of change, and retraining people within organizations to actually understand how to create their ecosystems and teams of people that they don't own, but that are still valued and stable members of their team. Like that, that's a big paradigm shift.
Right.
I push back on that a little bit. So let me ask a question. I think everywhere what we are reading right now is there are way too many jobs. There's not enough people. Right. And then we're also seeing there's an exodus from the gig economy, from Ubers and Lyft, which are the most well documented. I mean, I see that as a signal or a sign that there is in this environment, there has been a shift from gig economy back to employment, because what employment offers people. I'm just trying to get a sense from the community to see, are you seeing that as well? playing out in, in the Upworks of the world and the freelance communities of the world, from Hexaware, given that you're working with Upwork, are you seeing fewer people available for you to work, or is this notion of there are not enough people for the jobs available, is that because they are fishing in the wrong part?
Well, there's no question there's a global talent shortage. If you pay attention to the IT services business, I know Stephen's organization, Cognizant, announced that they lost $300 million in opportunities because of just the lack of people to fill those roles. So there's no question it's real. Upwork has been a very good partner for us to find workers and identify those skills that we need. What's interesting, Balaji, about your comment is that what we're trying to do at Hexaware, at least, is build a company within a company. So, people talk about digital clones. I'm thinking about a gig clone, right? How do you build a Hexaware that's a virtual workforce, essentially? And what we're doing is certifying those individuals, as I said earlier, essentially pre-qualifying them and bringing them into the Hexaware culture, which is a real challenge. I'd be interested in other people's experience with how do you extend your culture to gig workers. But we're trying to do that and even pay them a stipend for being part of our organization, right? Some kind of benefits, some way to make them part of the fold, but still keep their freelancing independence.
It's awesome. It's great to hear.
Great. Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Balaji, for that comment. And Neil, good point. Hey, I want to pivot over because Tim and I were talking about he's the VP of digital product at architecture at Kelly, and they've got a new platform called Helix UX. I don't know if you want to dive into that for a few minutes, Tim.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for kind of giving me the opportunity to talk about it. It's been a couple of weeks since I've joined the last call here. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm a member of the Kelly organization, like Kathy, like John Healy used to be in the past, and I focus on digital innovation. So I'm located in Germany, northern part of Germany, but have a global role. And basically, what my team is working on is what are the major trends that we're seeing in the market that impact our customers, and how can we utilize technology and digital solutions to provide a better experience and a better service as a Kelly organization. What I want to do, we recently launched a new platform that I wanted to share, but before I jump in, if that's okay, I have 2 to 3 slides that I wanted to share. Again, I'm not in sales. This is not a sales pitch. I have no clue how to sell, but I just wanted to make sure people understand why we're doing what we're doing. So can everybody see my screen right now? Does that work out?
Yeah.
All right. Cool stuff. Cool. So just from an overall introduction perspective, because it drives a lot of the decision making we're making. I mean, Kelly Services, 75-year-old staffing company, very traditional business model. You need to get work done. You call Kelly. You say, hey, I need a Kelly girl, and then basically you receive a couple of profiles or resumes, and then next Monday the Kelly girl starts. I mean, pretty oversimplified, but what happened over the last 75 years is that the workforce has become more complex. Organizations use talent in different ways. They employ talents via different work contracts, and that's basically where at some point in time a subsidiary that we call Kelly OCG came into play, where we go out and help our clients to manage what we call their talent supply chains. No matter if it's temporary staffing, if it's full-time staffing, if it's independent contractors, if they work with service providers that are engaged through a statement of work, whatever it is, that's basically what we manage today as an organization. We have around $9 billion, what we call spend under management, that's customer spent, that we're managing over 1,000 clients. We hire around 60,000 people full-time for customers, but we also work with around 4,600, what we call supply chain partners. This can be all kind of different providers, staffing suppliers, IC agencies, human cloud platforms, whatever you have. The industry trend that we're seeing, and that's what our customers are talking to us about, is how can you manage the workforce realistically? Because realistically, what we see today is that a lot of decisions are made in silos. Procurement might look after temporary staffing, HR looks after permanent hiring, procurement looks for services procurement, but at the end of the day, this creates massive inefficiencies. When you take a look at the traditional organization, around 75% of contingent workers don't get redeployed. You bring them into the organization once, they complete the project, they leave the organization, they might never come back. That's a tale as old as time. But a lot of organizations saying, how can you bring everything together, manage it consistently, get better visibility into what's happening into the organization on the full-time side and the contingent side, and how can you make sure that there is that one single point of entry into these different solutions. And that's basically kind of like the Helix platform I'm going to talk about in a couple of minutes, because that's really what ties it all together, and that's what you're seeing on the right side here. So again, going back to the kind of like strategic impact, what's happening? How are we seeing the market? You see that kind of like from an overall external workforce perspective, there's been a lot of movement over the last 25, 30 years. Everything is getting more digital. Everything is getting more structured. There's less opportunities for hiring managers to just go out and get somebody into the organization. Procurement is getting involved. And at the end of the day, there's also the need to drive kind of like cost savings and at the same time enable self-service. So where the industry is today, it's probably somewhere between MSP and total talent management. But we all agree that at some point in time, everybody is going to pursue a platform strategy like everyone does in every industry in the world, and that everything is going to focus more on marketplaces. There's a lot of new technologies that kind of like you need to bring in to make this happen. You need to kind of like verify credentials through blockchain. You want to have kind of like automation, either built in or through kind of like RPA. You need AI to do better matching. You need to close specific capability gaps through third-party technologies. And obviously you need to drive kind of like better outcomes through advanced analytics. But as an organization, that's what we're seeing. This is what our customers are asking us for. So as an organization, we really need to think about how do we make it happen? Because the traditional model, and I think that's an important thing, that is currently making us very successful will go away. And we understand that, and we kind of like acknowledge that. So the entry point for total talent management, and that's basically kind of like how this whole story started, is where kind of like Helix comes into play, because we realized that a lot of customers today operate with independent systems or independent kind of like technologies, different user interfaces. And I think Josh Burson always talks about the overwhelmed employee, just because there's so many systems, so many technologies you need to interact with. So the question for us is always, how can you make sure that you build that single point of entry where a client can go to get every issue resolved or every worker need kind of like done, completed, so that there's no need to toggle between the different systems, because that's basically where you provide a superior user experience. That's what you need to have if you want to pursue a total talent management strategy. I have one last slide I want to kind of like talk over really quick, because kind of like we're moving to become an agile organization. We're kind of like working a lot with our IT department to kind of like to deliver kind of like faster release cycles, which is hard for a traditional organization. But at the end of the day, we iterate pretty quickly. We're really following an aggressive kind of like schedule. And the way it started, and I think I just wanted to share that because it talks a lot about kind of like evolving kind of like requests and kind of like issues that we're seeing in the market, is that a lot of our customers said, hey, today we're communicating via email or phone calls. Sometimes the Kelly people don't return the calls. Sometimes we don't know if an email falls into the black hole. Isn't there an opportunity to have that single point of entry where we can kind of like post our requests and kind of like just open a ticket, like in an IT service environment? Pretty simple. But we pretty quickly realized that there is even more value that we can provide here. I want to kind of like share a very quick demo. Unfortunately, I only have a very basic version that I'm allowed to show everybody here, but I think you will get the idea. And there's also the fact that a lot of the configuration is actually done during the implementation. So we launched a couple of weeks ago, 5 clients. We have 85 clients lined up right now for implementation. But basically what you're seeing is an entry point that kind of like we're putting into client systems can be sitting in the intranet. We allow single sign-on, but every hiring manager, every user can go to that platform and basically start the journey there to interact with kind of like Kelly, to get work done, no matter what it is, or get all kind of issues resolved that they might have. 3 core call to actions that we're having here in this very basic version. The one thing I talked about earlier, really making sure that we have that ticketing system, not really rocket science, but in the staffing industry, that's something that a lot of customers hadn't seen before. I'm a hiring manager. I need to get something done. I want to, whatever, like have an issue with an invoice. I want to an example, kind of like change a purchase order, whatever it is our customers are experiencing. I can upload something, I can submit it. And basically every inquiry gets tracked. Again, no rocket science here, but it's really kind of like that one single point of entry that a lot of customers were asking for, which I find interesting because it's not really kind of like sophisticated technology when you think about it. It becomes more interesting when you kind of like think about the overall recommendation, because what we see today, we always assume that a user knows exactly what they want. Hey, I want to have a gig worker. Hey, I want to kind of like go to Upwork, freelancer.com, whatever it is. But very, very often there are things like kind of like procurement rules. There's probably specific kind of like consumption behaviors of the user. There's probably kind of like a limited talent availability in specific segments. So basically, the thing that's really interesting within the Helix platform is that kind of like AI kind of like bot functionality that we've created to really make sure that the hiring manager is getting the work done through the right channel. In this basic example here, you basically have a simple kind of like chatbot decision tree, not really rocket science. You ask a couple of questions and then you basically kind of like go through, and at the end of the day, there's a recommendation, and it's probably linking out to a third-party system. But over the last years, we did a lot of work consolidating and kind of like understanding client behavior to make sure that we can provide sophisticated recommendations that are not just based on decision trees, but that are based on the procurement rules I talked about, previous user behavior, but also, and most importantly, talent availability. Because nothing makes sense if you say, hey, you should hire an independent contractor to get your work done, when external market data or talent pool kind of like information tells us there isn't anybody out there. Or you want to hire $35 for a Java developer. The technology knows, based on market rate information that we have, that you're not going to be able to find something. So really taking that consultation that we've done in the past through the human and really digitizing it and making it smart is becoming so important, because, as I said earlier, a lot of our users don't really know where to go. They assume they know which channel and opportunity is best. But with that, we really want to bring it to the next level to make better talent recommendations, because that's what the market is looking for right now. And then kind of like the last thing I want to share here, obviously we have the ability to kind of like do live chat, which is again not rocket science in the staffing industry. It's pretty interesting. You basically start a live chat like you would with Verizon or anybody else in your consumer space. Somebody from the Kelly team would take over kind of like that chat. You get your issue resolved. Again, not really sophisticated. But then it also links into a lot of different kind of like analytics and kind of like data sets, thinking about kind of like the virtual assistant analytics, for example, where you can see how many conversations did the users have. We can pull a lot of data kind of like out of it. It really allows us to refine the recommendations that we're making, and everything is kind of like really combined here in the Helix platform. Coming to the end here, everything you're seeing is really the first build. We're adding more features on a monthly basis, kind of like for the kind of like June sprint. I could probably share that with you guys. There's a couple of things we're going to release kind of like later this month. So obviously, kind of like appointment scheduling is something that some customers were asking for. Once we've solved that, it makes a lot of sense to kind of like use that for interview scheduling, which is still an administrative nightmare for a lot of our customers. Pretty easy functionality. We're adding what we call a virtual TSCA advisor. We have advanced analytics that our clients have access to. We have over 200 dashboards. A lot of customers, especially when they're uneducated, they really get lost in the amount of data. So we developed an AI advisor to make recommendations on dashboards and data. That's actually something our customers really love. We're going to take the requisitions. So right now we're pointing the hiring manager in the right direction, but we're going to take the requisition from the conversation that you've seen to make sure we're pushing it down to the downstream systems, which could be a VMS or an ATS or human cloud platform, whatever it is. And we're also adding some additional sub-products in the services procurement space and kind of like something we call IDM. It's basically worker tracking, where you can track contractors that are not managed by Kelly in this space. And this is how we evolve the solution kind of like month after month, so that we, at the end of the day, will become, or we have the ability to connect our customers with all the different avenues and all the different opportunities that they have to get work done. And make sure that everything stays a consistent experience, because that's kind of like the one thing that we don't see today in the market, and that's what we want to solve with the Helix platform. John, I was racing through. It's 3 minutes.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's
awesome.
awesome.
I know. Sorry, we got going on so many other conversations, but I'm sure tons of people. This is super inspiring the way you're pulling all this stuff together, and I really appreciate you showing kind of behind the or under the hood of what's happening. Anybody have any questions? I'm sure there are tons. Jump in. Nobody?
All right. Well, I have one. Yeah. So Dean Bashi, Verticent. So you've got a new UI and kind of a seamless experience there. So on the supply side, on the talent side, how are you adding to or changing what you're doing today in order to kind of support the new digital model you've got?
So great question. Obviously, we're adding more talent pools into it, because I think that's going to be the thing where customers require more instant access to talent. If you take a look at traditional staffing, that's not happening. You send it to an agency, they look for profiles, and they send back profiles 5 days kind of like later. And that's not a kind of like best-in-class experience anymore. But everything we're doing today, all the providers we're working with are kind of like snapping into the platform. There's going to be integrations. We do a lot of work with kind of like RPA, which allows us to be more flexible with connecting systems. So at the end of the day, for the supplier and provider, there's not necessarily a change. It's mainly for the user. So we can snap in kind of like a human cloud platform via an API. We can snap in a traditional staffing supplier via VMS technology, or an agency to provide kind of like full-time talent via an applicant tracking system. That's possible.
Great. Other questions?
Yeah, I do. Hi, Tim. David Swift here.
Hey, David.
Haven't seen you in a while. Just curious, that total talent management, in my viewpoint, has been talked about a lot, but actually very few people have done it. Is this going to help them do it, or is this something different?
No, I think it's going to help them do it, because what I started to do, I don't talk about total talent management as a product. I talk about the total talent management journey. And I think that's something that we've started to do. No customer is starting the journey from the same starting point. So we really need to make sure that if you want to manage your contingent workforce and probably your independent contractors through Helix, you can do that. If you don't want to use it for permanent hiring or for human cloud, that's not a problem. We have the ability to kind of like tweak it, and almost like a Tesla. At some point in time, you say, hey, I want self-driving or concierge mode, whatever it is, and then we can basically unlock it overnight. So it's really depending on the maturity of the client, because we understand that if everything is available at once, we might overwhelm customers. It's really depending on the individual situation.
Tim, I think an ability for you to be the interface to all sources, marketplaces, also depends in some way on your transaction cost that you're levying as the intermediary, right? And does doing this reduce the cost of your being the intermediary over a period of time?
Yeah, I remember our conversation.
Yeah, I'm like,
I remember the conversation.
Access a marketplace, and it is. Then we would use 20% less of their capacity because we are servicing the intermediary as well. And I think that's the question as well.
Exactly. So I think that the key thing, like when you think about the aggregator, we didn't have the platform. So there was like a human component that kind of like you and I talked about, and with the human involvement comes cost. So for kind of like the Helix platform, it will become a marketplace so that we have the ability to directly connect kind of like the user and a third-party provider. Obviously, there needs to be kind of like some cost, but the transactional cost is definitely less than what we had in the past, because we have the ability to digitize a lot of the interactions. And I think that's the most important thing for us. And this is why we build it, because we understand that the human element is not sustainable from a cost perspective. So I took your advice, Balaji, after like the last conversation we had, and a lot of it kind of like fed into the new model.
I'm excited to re-engage.
That's awesome. I know we're at time. Happy to take a couple more questions if people have them, but certainly let's, I think Brandon, you put Tim's LinkedIn up on the chat, didn't you? And make sure that reach out to Tim if you have questions. And Tim, I have a ton of questions, so I'll be in touch for sure.
Cool stuff.
So really, really appreciate today. I love the perspective of everybody, and thanks for Stephen and David and John and everybody. Ashley, great comments on the session. So thanks again for everything, and really love you guys, and have a good weekend, and we'll catch up in a couple weeks after after the Clubhouse.
Yeah, Clubhouse. There's a link. Brandon, thanks for posting that.
Yes.
Next week.
Yeah, next week.
Let me know.
Next week, our topic is going to be diversity, equality, and inclusion, and open talent. So look forward to seeing y'all, or not seeing you.
And John, see if you could get Balaji.
I know Balaji. Are you still on?
He dropped. Just like get peer pressure. It's got
work. Peer pressure. Look. Maybe I'll even pay him. I'll fly to San Francisco and get him set up on it.
Wait,
we'll
there's money together. Okay, hold on.
Bye, all right. Talk soon. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thanks.
Thank you.